Welcome to qiphyedu. Today we'll be looking at Economics Paper 13, October-November 2021. Alright, let's start. Okay, so for question 1, it says in the diagram JK is the initial production possibility curve for an economy producing computers and cars. Okay, so that means there are two products that are made in this economy, which will be computers and cars. The original curve is JK, which is this one. And then it says what could cause the curve to shift to JL, which is this line here. So you can see that there's a decrease in production. The possibility for the production of cars will now become L instead of K. So there's less production of cars. And why is there this shift? So there are 4 options here. It says A, a fall in output per worker in the car industry, which is possible because of a fall in output, the quantity shifted to the left. But let's see the other 3 options. B, it says a fall in the level of competition in the car industry, which is not exactly correct, even though technically when there's a fall in the level of competition, probably there will be inefficiency. But then in this case, because you're not comparing it with multiple car manufacturing companies, you're comparing with 2 products. So this is less likely to happen, so this is not correct. And C, it says a rise in the potential workforce. If there's a rise in potential workforce, we will not have shifted to the left. And D, a rise in price of cars has nothing to do with this graph because this graph is for PPC, not for PED. So this is not correct as well. So answer is A. Question 2. Consumers in country X buy some goods and services from private sector firms. Other goods and services are provided by the state. And what type of economy is this? So first it says the consumers buy goods and services from private sector firms. Then other goods and services are provided by the state. This means that this is a mixed economy because first, private goods are produced by private sector firms, and then public goods or merit goods are provided by the state. So this is a mixed economy, so the answer is C. All the others here, you can see that if A says a free market economy, that means that the economy is basically a market economy where there's no public goods, so there will be missing market. And then this is not a joint economy. Nothing here actually has anything to do with joint economy. And D says planned economy, meaning that everything must be provided by the state, so this is also not correct. Question 3. In 2017, the Bank of England introduced a new version of the £1 coin, as there were concerns that large quantities of illegal £1 coins had been put into circulation. And which characteristic of money did the illegal £1 coins threaten? Now this is also part of the previous syllabus. Anything that's about money is from the previous syllabus, but I'm just going to do it anyways. So what makes money functional? That will be when you give the money to another person, he or she will accept that particular money as payment to a particular item. So the main point we want here is acceptability. So here in these 4 options here, it says portability, which doesn't really match with whatever we want here, because it says that they introduced a new version of the coin because they were concerned that a lot has been put into circulation. The coins themselves were already portable in the first place, but why they want to cancel out the original coin and then they actually create a new version of that coin? Because they are afraid that the illegal version of the coin will be put to use, resulting in the fake coins that are put into circulation being affecting trades and all those. So this one, portability is not correct. Durability as well. And then it's not divisibility, so the only answer here we have is acceptability. Alright. Question 4. Which statement is a positive statement? So like, positive statement is when the statement itself is factual, testable, and it is can be tested with evidence. But if it's a normative statement, it's mostly based on your personal opinions, and it is technically not really considered to be provable by evidence. So let's see which one is the most accurate one. A, it says low inflation is preferable to low unemployment as a government aid. So preferable would be an opinion, so nope. And then B, it says low inflation will provide a more stable macroeconomy. This is a positive statement because indeed it is testable that low inflation will provide a more stable macroeconomy. Let's look at C and D. It says the government must intervene in all markets to improve resource allocation. This is based on opinion. It's not necessarily possible for intervention to improve resource allocation. There are many other ways that can improve resource allocation, but not exactly government intervention. So C is based on opinion. And D, the government should cut income tax so living standards can improve. Should cut income tax. This is a normative statement because it doesn't exactly help, or I should say, it's not exactly, it's not really one of the ways to actually improve living standards. It's not like the government should cut income tax so that living standards can improve, and it's not really, I would say, it's not the, it's not exactly the only option that we have out there, and it may not even be the best option. So D is not correct as well. This is still based on opinion. So I'll say it's B. Question 5, what could cause an increase in consumer surplus in the market for good? So when there's an increase in consumer surplus, this means that it will look something like this. Let's say there's an increase in consumer surplus, the possibility would be that the demand curve shifts to the right. So an increase in demand for the good, yep. So anything that says no will be wrong. And then an increase in supply for the good would also be possible, because if, let's say, now I leave the supply curve to be in this state, it will look something like this. The original CS will be something like this. Then this is the new one. So now you can see that there's not really a large, there's actually not really a larger consumer surplus. But if, let's say, I were to shift the supply curve to the right, then it looks something like this. So there's a larger area. So yes, it does increase consumer surplus by increasing supply of good. So it says D. Question 6, the diagrams show the effect of a change in the market for good X on the market for good Y. So you can see that a decrease in supply will result in an increase in demand, which means that this is, that means that both of these products are substitutes. Why? Because you can see that if let's say there's a change in market for good X, you can see that the supply curve shifts to the left. The price increase and the quantity decrease for good X. But then at the same time, the demand for good Y increases, and this means that an increase in price for good X will result in an increase in demand for good Y. This means that both of them are substitutes because the results that you get based on the CE or based on your cost elasticity demand is positive. So answer is C. Question 7, the diagram shows the average roll price of coffee in the US cents per pound weight between 1997 and 2005. Which event is consistent with the price behavior shown in a specific time period? So you can see that originally in 1997, the average roll price of coffee is around 130 plus US cents per pound weight, and then it gradually decreased until probably less than 50 US cents per pound weight in 2001, and then it gradually increased back again to about 90 US cents per pound weight in 2005. So which event is consistent? So you can see A, it says a continuous rise in the price of tea between 1997 and 2001, which is wrong because the price has decreased. B, it says the entry to the market of new producers of coffee between 1997 and 2001, which is possible because when there's new producers of coffee, competition increases, so price would then decrease so that they can garner the most demand. C, it says a series of good coffee harvests between 2001 and 2005, which is not correct, because if let's say if there's a series of good coffee harvests, the price would have decreased, not increased. Increase meaning that there's a decrease in supply. And D, it says increasing health worries about drinking coffee between 2001 and 2005, which is wrong, because the increase in price can also be due to an increase in demand, which also increases the price. So D is not correct. Answer is B. Question 8, the diagram shows a shift in the supply curve for a product from S1 to S2, so there's a shift to the right. And what could cause this shift in the supply curve? A, it says an increase in the cost of producing a product, which is wrong, because if let's say it's due to an increase in cost, the supply curve should have shifted to the left, not to the right. B, it says an increase in income of consumers of a product. This would then shift the demand curve to the right, not the supply curve. And C, an increase in demand for a product that is jointly supplied, which is correct. And D, it says an increase in the price of product, which is wrong, because if there's an increase in the price of product, the supply curve will shift to the left. Answer is C. Question 9, the diagram shows 4 supply curves. For which curve is the price elasticity of supply constant? So you can see that for D, it is mostly PED less than 1. If let's say it starts from 0, it's always PES less than 1 for D. And then if it starts from 0, the PES would always be 1, regardless of how you angle the PES, it will always be 1. So the curve that is price elasticity constant, that is PES constant, would be C. All the others here, you can see that for let's say if you look at A and B, for example, you'll see that A is curved up. So this one is not constant, it is actually changing. Same goes for B. So C is the one that has a constant PES because of a straight line, but A is curved, so the PES is not constant. Same goes for B and D. You know the lines are straight, but they don't start from 0, they start from different values. So the PES is not equal to 1, right? Okay, so for question 10, what would be the price elasticity of demand for smartphones if the price fell from $100 to 90 and the quantity demanded rose from 200 to 250? So this one we can calculate by using the formula, which is the percentage change in QD over percentage change in price, which would be 100 minus 90 over 100 over quantity demanded rose from, so I need to move to the bottom. This one is the price, and then rose from 200 to 250, so 250 minus 200 over 200, which would give me 1 over 4, and then 1 over 10, and then we move this up and down, we get 2.5, so answer is C. Alright, and then question 11, the diagram shows the demand for and supply of a normal good. E1 is the initial equilibrium, and which changes could result in a new equilibrium E2. So this one you can see that clearly there will be a shift in the demand curve to the right, something like this. It looks something like this. Here, roughly that. A shift to the right, and then a shift of the supply curve to the left. Yeah, like this. And yep, it looks something like this. So the shift of the supply curve to the left, a shift in demand to the right. So A, it says a decrease in both the demand for and the supply of good, which is wrong. B, it says an increase in both demand for and the supply of good, wrong. C, an increase in the consumer's incomes, yes, that's possible. And a decrease in the supply of good, yes. And D, it says an increase in price of complement to the good and an increase in the supply of the good. Nope. It's a decrease in the supply. And answer is, and also D is definitely completely opposite, so answer is C. Question 12, the table shows the market demand and market supply for kiwi fruit over a year. At a market price of $3 per kilogram, there is a disequilibrium in the market. And which action would the government have to take to achieve market equilibrium at a price of $3 per kilogram? So you can see that if it's at $3, the total market demand is 160,000 tons. So you can see that if, let's say, we were to achieve the same 160 tons for the supply, it must be at $5. So the government has to do some intervention here. So A, if it says you impose an indirect tax of $2 per kilogram, your supply will then drop to 120. So nope, this is not the right answer. B, it says purchase the entire supply at $3 per kilogram and sell at $2 per kilogram, which is also wrong. And C, it says set a maximum price of $3 per kilogram, which is wrong. And D, it says subsidize kiwi fruit production by $2 per kilogram, which is correct, because if you subsidize, then you can produce, then the price of kiwi fruit that the producer gain will be $5, and then they can sell at 160,000 tons. So that'll balance out the 160 here at the total market demand. So answer is D. Question 13, the cross elasticity of demand of good X with respect to price of good P is positive 1.5, which means both of them are substitutes, and the cross elasticity of demand of good X with respect to price of good R is negative 1.5, which means they're complements. Same goes for P and R. So what can be concluded here would be S and P are substitutes, so A, B is wrong. And then the answer is C, because there's no mention of YED here, it's XED. So if you're good, it's not in the question, so we can ignore directly this option. Question 14, the government wishes to impose a tax on the goods so that the consumer pays more of the tax increase, and which type of elasticity would best achieve this aim? So this one, it has to be the fact that the price elasticity of supply must be high, because if the price elasticity of supply is high, suppliers can then adjust to the changes in the price of that particular good. And when the suppliers can adjust perfectly to that, the quantity supplied, they can change the quantity supplied because of due to a change in the price of a good, then the consumers will then have to pay most of the tax increase, because the suppliers can adjust very well. So that means that the elasticity of supply for this particular good must be high. So I'll say it's A. Question 15, why does the production of public goods have to be financed by the government? Like I said, if it's a market economy, then there'll be missing market, because no private firms will then want to produce public goods because they are not sure making a profit. So let's see which one would be the best option. A, it says one person's consumption of public good means it's not available for anyone else, which is wrong. Anyone can consume public good. And B, it says people are able to consume public goods without paying for them. Yes, this makes sense. And C, it says private sector firms will charge a price significantly above cost for public goods. Nope. Public goods are meant to be free, paid by tax. D, it says the cost of producing public goods is higher in the private sector. Not exactly. public firms and the private sector and the public sector can produce the public goods at roughly the same cost. So no, answer is B. Question 16, which payment is a transfer payment? So it does not involve production. So A says household payment indirect taxes, which is wrong because that means that you have a salary. B says government pension payments, which is correct because you're not doing anything and then you get the money. C says payments between firms for supply of raw materials, which is wrong. D says payment of salaries, which is wrong. So answer is B. Question 17, the diagram shows the effect of a subsidy in the market for wheat. So which area shows the total government spending on the subsidy? So you can see that after the subsidy, the equilibrium is at P2. So Ij would be the subsidy per unit. So the total government spending on subsidy would have to be from P2 to P4 to I and J. So this would be D. So answer is D. We need to calculate based on the price after subsidy and price before subsidy, and it has to be the same quantity. It cannot be a different quantity. So the best option would then be Q2, and that will be P2, P4, I, and J. The entire area would be the government spending on the subsidy. Question 18, the government wishes to reduce the consumption of alcohol, and which policy will use to achieve the aim by fixing the price of alcohol? Assuming that the price equilibrium is at this point, I'm just going to draw dotted lines. Then that means that in order to reduce the consumption, your supply must increase and your demand must decrease. So in this case, you need to adjust a minimum price above equilibrium. So that will be something like this. Alright, so you need to fix a minimum price above market price. So answer is C. 19, according to the theory of comparative advantage, what makes trade beneficial between two countries? So which one would be the answer here? We will need to look at the four options. A says each country has different goods to sell and different tastes, which is not correct. The country, one country specializes in one thing, another country specializes in one thing, and then let's say they produce many things, then they'll produce the things that will result in the least opportunity cost for them. So B says each country has different opportunity cost of production. Yes, that's correct. One country has the absolute advantage in producing both goods, then there's no need to make trade beneficial already because the country can produce both goods with the absolute advantage that they have. And D says the prices of goods are different between each country, not related. So answer is B. Question 20, the demand for countries' exports is price elastic if government introduces export subsidies. What will be the effect on its balance of trade and on its terms of trade? So now the government introduces export subsidies, which means that the exports are now much cheaper, and so the balance of trade would increase because your volume of exports will be higher than your volume of imports. So A, B would be the possible answer here. And then it says terms of trade would either increase or decrease. If let's say your price decreases, your price of export decreases, that means that your terms of trade would become worse because now your import prices are now relatively higher than your export prices. So your terms of trade will decrease because of the export subsidies, which will make your country's exports much cheaper. So answer is B. Question 21, the table shows the average changes in the prices and volumes of exports and imports. Which combination of changes would result in an increase in the terms of trade? So now we need to see which one would then increase the terms of trade, which means that your price of imports must be lower than your price of exports. So let's see which one would best fit your question here. So A says that there's a decrease in the export prices, and then there's an increase in the export volume. And then it says import prices decreased by 15% and the import volumes increased by 10%. Actually, we don't exactly have to look at the export volume because it's nothing to do with the terms of trade here. So just have to look at export and import prices. So negative 10%, negative 15%, which means that import prices are now much lower than your export prices. So A is possible. B says the export prices decreased by negative 3%, import prices decreased by negative 2%, which is definitely going to make terms of trade much worse because your import prices decrease less than your export prices. Your export prices are now decreasing at a higher rate than your import prices, so this will make the terms of trade worse. And B says the import prices increased by 6%, and then the export prices increased by 5%, which means that export prices are still cheaper, right? And then D says there's an increase in 10% export prices, and then for import prices, an increase in 12%. So import prices are much higher than the export prices, so this is not correct, so answer is A. 22, a government decides to increase a quota on an imported good, and what is likely to happen? Now, if you increase a quota on an imported good, that means that the amount of goods that can be imported from one country to that country would increase. So A says the demand for good will fall, which is not correct. B says the good will become more expensive, not correct. C, it says the government's revenue will decline, which is absolutely wrong. And then D, it says there'll be more of the good imported, which is correct. Question 23, the diagram shows aggregate demand and aggregate supply for an economy. So AS1 moves to AS2, so it's a shift to the right. And what is most likely to cause a shift from AS1 to AS2? A, it says a decrease in the exchange rate, which is wrong, because if it's a decrease in the exchange rate, that means the demand curve shifts to the right. But here it says the supply curve shifts to the right. AS curve shifts to the right, so it's not AD curve that shifts. So A is not correct. B, it says a decrease in the price level. That is the consequence, so this is not correct. C, it says a fall in immigration, which is wrong, because if there's a fall in immigration, there will be a fall in net output because we have less workers. And D, it says a fall in the average level of wages, which is correct, because if there's a fall in the average level of wages, means that the company doesn't have to pay that much money to its workers, so they can produce more of that particular good, and the COP decreases. So I say D. All right, and then let's look at question 24. Country X places a tariff of 20% on steel products imported from country Y. Country Y retaliates with a 20% tariff on computers imported from country X. So there's a trade war basically with these two countries. And what is a certain economic consequence of these actions? So A, it says the balance of payments will remain unchanged. Not correct. Because balance of payments will be based on your net outflows and your net inflows. Steel products and the computers, they are charged differently. So this is not correct. B, the exchange rate value on which trade between these two countries is based will be maintained. This is not correct. C, the profit and employment of domestic firms in both countries will be preserved, which is not correct. And D, the volume of bilateral trade would be reduced, which is correct, because steel products imported from country Y now has a tariff of 20%. And then computers that are imported from country X will have a 20% tariff, which makes both the products more expensive. So the volume of bilateral trade would then be reduced. The reason why the profit and employment of domestic firms in both countries will not be preserved is because the quantity has decreased, resulting in more unemployment. B, says the exchange rate will be maintained, which is also wrong, because now your items are more expensive, so your exchange rate value will also not be maintained. And then your balance of payments will also change because of that increase in the tariff for both the products. 25, it says the country has a floating exchange rate. An increase in which variable within the country can cause its exchange rate to appreciate. So for an exchange rate to appreciate, there are a few options. First one is when so let's say we have this is the AD curve and this is the AS curve. In order for the exchange rate to increase, we need to look at a decrease in the price level. So a decrease in price level could be attributed to a shift in the AD curve to the left, or a shift in the AS curve to the right, which is like this. So here we can see that there are a few options. So A, it says employment levels, which is not correct, because employment levels result in increase in AD. So nope. B, it says income levels, which will shift which will result in the AS curve to shift to the left. So this increases the price level. So nope, not correct. And then it says interest rates. An increase in interest rate would result in an increase in exchange rate. So this is correct. And the increase in price level will result in a decrease in the exchange rate. So nope, let's say C. Question 26, the diagram shows the effect of an imposition of a tariff on an internationally traded good as DOM is the supply and D, the demand curve in country R. SW is the world supply curve of the product. SWT is the world supply curve after the imposition of a tariff, and which combination describes the effect of domestic supply and demand for good in country R after the imposition of the tariff. So the demand has decreased, so CD is wrong. You can see that the supply curve, the world supply has shifted to SWT because of the tariff, so demand has shifted from Q4 to Q3. So domestic supply has increased from Q1 to Q2, so it's fall and rises, so 26 is B. 27, the graph shows a change in current account of Belgium's balance of payments from 2016 to 2017. What will be the most likely impact of the change shown by the graph on Belgium's domestic economy? So you can see that with the positive balance of payments, this means that net inflow money is more than net outflow. So 27, let's look at the four options here. It says a fall in the real economic growth, which is wrong. There is economic growth. And B, a fall in the foreign currency reserves, which is wrong. There is more currency reserves because now there's more inflow money. And C, the fall in the number of unemployed people, which is correct because now you have more inflow money. So that means that your employment has increased. And D, a fall in the real inflation. It's not exactly fall in the real inflation because you cannot really see whether or not the rate of inflation has changed. So you can only really see the possibility here would be the fact that there'll be less unemployed people, right? So because the rate of inflation is calculated based on the price level, which is not here. Okay, so I say C. 28, what is an example of the use of monetary policy? So monetary policy is basically government's decisions on its money supply, your interest rates, and your exchange rates. So A says a cut in the rate of corporation taxes is based on fiscal policy, so it's not correct. B says a reduction in interest rates, correct. C says a switch from direct to indirect taxation, this is fiscal policy. And D, the introduction of maximum price controls, is the government intervention, so answer is B. 29, which policy will be likely to increase inflation, so increasing the price level. So like I said just now, which is the complete opposite, you need to have your AS curve shift to left and then your AD curve shift to right. Both of them will be possible to increase the price level. So here we see which one will be possible. A says an increase in income tax, which would decrease inflation. B, an increase in interest rates, which would decrease inflation. C, limiting the amount banks can lend, which would reduce inflation. And D, raising the level of import tariffs, which would increase inflation because more money will then be sent outside of the country, and also the AD would increase. So answer is D. Okay, question 30. What are the components of aggregate demand, which will be CIG plus X minus N? X minus N will be a net export, so everything here that doesn't have all these 5 components means that it's not correct. So D, C is wrong, and then B is wrong. Answer is A. Right, so this is the end of this paper. I hope you find this video helpful. Do share it out to other people who may need this video, and I hope to see you again in the next video, which will be about another economics past year paper. Till then, this is qiphyedu.